So, we have our new current thing, the new grenade that every leftist needs to dive on, and this time they decided they weren't debaucherous enough, so they thought, what we should do is we should flash kids. Yep, trenchcoat flash children on live television in multiple countries. Leftists don't be a degenerate challenge, difficulty impossible, I suppose. If you'd rather watch something more wholesome, you can go over to our website and pay £5 a month and get premium content like this, which is mine and Carl's chat on if Christianity and communism are compatible. Spoiler alert, no, definitely not. But it's a really deep discussion looking at biblical scripture and the history of Marxism and how communism is essentially the philosophy of Judas Iscariot and the devil, and I think the devil is very much at work with the following programs. Now, if you're confused as to what I'm talking about because you don't live in the UK or Denmark or the Netherlands, well, here's a trailer for Channel 4, which is one of the government-owned channels in the UK. Channel 4's newest program called Naked Education. Let's take a watch of the trailer. Stelios?
As teenagers, you're always thinking, I'm so fat.
There have definitely been times that I've looked in the mirror and hated what I see.
This is a baby step to becoming more accepting of who you are.
Being naked is not a bad thing at all.
Zero, please.
Educate! I think it's time that we see what real male bodies look like.
Whoa, naked men.
Do you know what? Your happiness shouldn't be reliant on whether you have this perfect shape.
A groundbreaking new series, Naked Education, starts Tuesday at 8 on Channel 4. All episodes available after on All 4.
You know, every time I see this, I feel really weird. I think physical education would be the answer.
How so?
In that when, you know, you have people complaining about their, let's say, bodily images, that maybe the healthy thing is to exercise.
What, so all the fat birds just end up running laps instead? I advocate it. For those
I don't know,
YouTube,
it doesn't seem productive. How is it going to help?
It helps the adults participating who want to strip off in front of children.
Yes,
That's
it's not about the kids.
No, for those on YouTube that didn't see that, you can check the link in our description on the website, or don't if you don't want to bleach our eyes. But what happened was a bunch of adults derobed and got naked in front of a classroom full of children to teach them about body positivity. Let's go to the Mail reporting on exactly the purpose of this show so I can explain this to you. Channel 4's Naked Education, not to be confused with Channel 4's Naked Attraction, which is a dating show about people getting naked, where you select your partner based on their genitals, that has the same presenter on the same network. Except this time it's with kids, so I'm sure that's just on the up and up. That aired recently, and many viewers have obviously complained about it because the children they're stripping off in front of were aged 14 to 16. The show is promoted as being all about body positivity. The celebrity presenters are on a mission to normalise all body types, champion our differences, and break down stereotypes. A Channel 4 spokesperson told Mail Online, all the teenagers who participated in Naked Education did so with appropriate consent. They and their guardians were fully aware and prepared to take part in the item about body taboos, and they had support throughout. Oh, so children can consent, apparently. Oh, no? No? Because it would be really awkward if you said that? I suppose you could say it out loud, because it seems that you're just doing it in front of cameras now. And also, I'm not happy with the answer that, oh, just the children consented because their guardians said they could do it. Okay, well, if the guardians had exposed their children to any other adult, completely nude, outside the household, you'd have Child Protective Services come in and take them away from those parents. I want the prosecution of everyone involved in this, funnily enough, for indecent exposure to children. Not a good thing. So, let's figure out why they did this. And we can hear it from the mouths of the participants. This was a video uploaded by a trans man, I think that's the word for it, saying about why they decided to show their philoplasty, their forearm flesh-constructed artificial penis, to a classroom full of children. Let's listen to the motivation.
You know, it's all about just loving our bodies, body autonomy, to change our bodies. Should that make us happier in terms of like gender identity and gender affirming surgeries in my case? It's a really, really positive show. That's why I chose to take part. Now, the sticking point was that, you know, they wanted to, well, the really positive thing was what they wanted to do was talk about phalloplasty. They wanted to talk about gender transition, but specifically in terms of surgery and about phalloplasty. But then what they wanted to do was show a naked trans body and show phalloplasty.
So
Why? Just sorry, I'm having none of it.
So what they want to do is promote gender surgeries, including sewing up the vagina and making a fake penis out of forearm tissue and irreparably scarring your arm to children. They wanted to promote it as a positive thing. Now, this person in the rest of the video, which you can go and watch because it's linked in the description, they said that they would not have known if they were trans if it wasn't seeing shows like this, like My Transsexual Summer on television. So that means that to promote the trans surgery to kids who are deliberately being confused by gender ideology is to perpetuate the raising of trans consciousness, just like it was in this poor, confused trans person. So it's trans begetting trans. The media is just generating this social contagion across time. And that's not good for the mental comorbidities of lots of young trans kids, I'm sure. Also,
I don't think they have put the least amount of effort into actually putting a justification for why they're doing it, or a purported justification.
Well, they've said it's because of inclusion and body positivity and to make the kids feel better.
Yeah, but how are they going to feel better? It's not like the kids have never seen someone who has excess fat.
Yeah, but it's not just fat people, it's trans penises.
Yeah.
So the question is, okay, why do trans people desperately need the validation of children to feel better about themselves? Questions can't be answered here for legal reasons. Speaking of things that I couldn't say on air, I actually went on GB News the other night. I'm not doing a Leo here, don't worry. And I spoke to one of the members was probably the wrong word, panellists from this show, who attempted to justify why he, after spending £20,000 on reconstructive surgery and then undoing it, went on the show and stripped off down to his underwear in front of a bunch of children. And I asked some pointed questions, and we'll see what he tries to justify, as you said. So if we can play the first clip, please. Let him speak for himself.
When we say young kids, kids are getting taught sex education and being shown these images in sex education. So I just want to put that out there first. But I went on the show because I wanted to show the youth of today that they can be comfortable in their own skin, and also that the naked body isn't perverse. It's just a naked body. And
so you had to get completely naked in front of a group of young teenagers?
So for me, I went on and I stripped down to my boxer shorts, because obviously the lineup I was in was all about cosmetic, as you've just said, with the £20,000 that I spent on myself. But I wanted to just show, like, people can be themselves and be confident. And I got sucked into the Instagram world of showing, the abs and the filtered images and stuff. So I felt like it was my duty to go on and really...
Well, I think we've got some footage of you on the show now, actually. Okay, so there you go. You can see you're talking to the children there about what you're doing. I mean, did it not feel a little bit perverted? A lot of people have complained to Ofcom, the regulator, about this, Liam.
Yeah, no, I've seen lots of words being thrown around like perverse, but what we've got to do is take perverse out of it, because perverse shouldn't be in it whatsoever, because at the end of the day, that's a defamation of someone's character, and I feel like we should take that perverse word out.
But Liam, you're very clear that this was nothing sexual for you or any of the other participants, was it?
It definitely wasn't. Like, we were all vetted. We all had our background checks with this show. The parents were there as well with the youth of today. They all signed the agreement. And do you know what? The youth were absolutely brilliant. They wanted to learn. And looking at the episode that you can see on all 4 of mine already, seeing some of the youth of today go away from that programme and just learn so much from it. I'm just so happy that, 90% of the public are taking this programme as it is. And that's an educational programme.
Well, look,
I don't see how it's just okay because a bunch of parents say, oh, even though they're underage, if I sign the waiver to have someone basically flash my child on live television, then it's all right. I think we used to call Child Protective Services for things like that. And also, OK, if it's educational, if we need nudity for that, obviously the logical consequence of sex education isn't just to have naked people to talk about the anatomy in front of people. So, Liam, simple question, would you be fine with practical demonstrations between adults sexually in front of children, or is that a line too far?
Well, what you've got to remember, Connor, is that definitely people, it's so out there online. They can see all
so it's
this
okay because it's already going on, right?
Well, yeah, these can see all this fake stuff anyway. When they look at pornographic images, that's all fake anyway.
That should be illegal. So you're saying because they can access porn online, you should have real sex performed in front of them so they know what it is.
Well, it's like you said, it should be illegal, and being on social media
Kim,
should
final
be
word
illegal.
to you.
I was about to say that for some reason, I think you want to torture me. But
blame GB News for torturing me, for putting me on the panel with
I
that
think
fella.
your contribution was really good. I would like to. No, I wouldn't like to, but I think it's an important question to be asked. What does this person think is perverse?
Anything that doesn't allow him to get off.
Yeah.
So he's genuinely trying to say we need to take the perversion out of it because it's defamation of character. No, it's a moral judgment. It's not implying you've done anything illegal, though I think it should be, definitely. But it is obviously perverse because you want to strip off in front of children. Like, I'm not going to be gaslit into thinking, oh, well, if it's about inclusion in the context of making sure the children feel body positive. No, you're stripping off in front of other people's kids. And if you notice there, he had absolutely no argument against the idea that you should not be performing sex acts in front of kids like it's a Monty Python sketch. Because he just deflected to, well, it's on the internet anyway. We might as well tell them what real sex is like. I wonder if there's some sort of sexual fetish involved here.
They try to treat everything as a parking. They have this issue to flash.
Yeah.
They go with the robes and they open it.
I would be fascinated, I'm not insinuating anything, of course, if they had to edit out any of the clips because any of the members of the lineup got aroused while they were standing there. That'd be a good question to answer, Channel 4. So obviously it's got a lot of complaints, and if you're in the UK, you can actually file an Ofcom complaint against this kind of thing. I would encourage you go and do that. So Naked Education has attracted over, up to now, I think it's probably over, 1,000 Ofcom complaints. It's been aimed at children at 8 p.m, which is before the watershed, which, if people don't know, in the UK, you can't have gratuitous swearing, nudity, or gratuitous violence before the watershed, which is 9 o'clock in the afternoon, because the idea is you have some kind of public standard of propriety until the kids go to bed. But this is before watershed, so it's just nudging the Overton window even so further towards perversion. Host Anna Richardson has said the show goes a step further than the show she also presents, which is Naked Attraction. Naked Education is a sort of step further than Naked Attraction, as it says, let's normalise bodies, let's have the conversation about what we go through, and let's educate the nation. I like to make shows that are controversial, break taboos and make a difference, and with every single show that I've done, you can tick one of those boxes. Ian Katz, who's Channel 4's chief content officer, wrote on Twitter in response to criticism about the programme, anyone who suggests that Channel 4 show Naked Education promotes paedophilia or is abusive of children almost certainly hasn't watched it. You put out the trailer where people are taking off their clothes in front of children. I don't care if you try and justify it as educational. You're obviously platforming nonsense. I'm not going to play mental gymnastics. It's just weird. The show counters the dangerous myths and toxic images that teenagers are bombarded with by exposing them to real, normal bodies and engaging them in an open, safe conversation about them. It would be hard to think of a clearer example of valuable public service broadcasting that challenges the kind of misconceptions that too often cause anxiety and feelings of inadequacy in young people.
What is a misconception? Sorry, what's the misconception here? I'm getting angry.
So if you see an edited photo on Instagram, the only antidote to that is to look at a trans penis in real life.
And that's going to suddenly make all your problems go away.
Yeah, it's going to make you a lot mentally healthier. Sure.
Okay.
A
Some
spokesperson...
discussions should not be had, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm fine with some discussions. I'm just not fine with people getting naked in front of children. Don't think we can hammer the point home anymore. Spokesperson for Ofcom said, we're assessing the complaints against our broadcasting rules before deciding whether or not to investigate. So the translation is, repressive tolerance mandates that anything that goes in favour of the regime will be tolerated, despite it being obviously perverse and exploitative of children. So we're going to allow it. It's fine. So it turns out, UK, not the only one that's doing this. There's a show in the Netherlands Daily Beast has reported on this, and I don't normally go to the Daily Beast, but even they, they're putting it in a positive light, but we're not going to. The show, called Genwen Blut, which translates to Simply Naked, is meant to promote body positivity. In it, a panel of clothless adults talk to kids between the ages of 10 and 12 about not feeling ashamed of their physical selves and take on such subjects as shaving and waxing. Dutch public broadcaster NOS said, "The aim is to teach children that each and every body is different and that not all bodies are perfect." However, Dutch MP Tuanan Kuzu reportedly called the show ridiculous and called for a boycott. Far-right politician Thierry Baudet accused the show of promoting paedophilia. Oh, the far-right are against paedophilia. How radical. And Kees van der Staaij, who heads up the fundamentalist Protestant party, SGP, said Guian Blut is not normal and shouldn't become normal, and announced his party would be bringing up the issue in Parliament. So I'm actually quite glad they used the term far-right there, because it obviously demonstrates how far they've moved the needle towards saying everything we don't like is far-right, and whatever comes along that we now have to defend, anyone who doesn't defend that is far-right. And it's gotten to the point now where the category is so broad, it's anyone who doesn't want their children flashed on live television by a forearm penis is far-right. Thank you for immediately discrediting that smear in the public eye. So the show is also based on a Danish program, definitely not based, called Ultra Smider Toget, called Ultra Strips Down, which is now in its second season, and we'll get to that in a moment. We've got a clip, just that I'll talk over, of this Dutch TV show. This is the episode where they showed young children transgender people. It's thankfully blurred, of course, and I'm just going to read from a Daily Mail article, which is linked in the description while this plays. It turns out that the Dutch show had criticism before it broadcast on March 21st. The host said the aim is to teach children that each and every body is different and that not all bodies are perfect. In this particular episode, it says, "Today our guests are transgender, so it's not just male and female, there's an entire spectrum of genders besides male and female." So the purpose of the show is to introduce gender confusion. One transgender person who was on the programme said they felt euphoric after their gender reassignment surgery. "I woke up and I knew my breasts were gone, that I looked like I had always wanted to look, it finally matched the way I felt inside, and that made me feel ecstatic." They're obviously promoting self-mutilation as a good thing to children. Anyone who is still under the delusion that this is a good thing should go and watch our interview with Richie Herron about that. One Twitter user from the Netherlands defended the show, saying, "I live in the Netherlands. This is simply one episode of the show. It normalizes any naked body and lets children engage with it in an educational way. It doesn't say anything unsubstantiated by science, and you just watched a right-wing political ad about it." I had a look at what the particular Twitter account was, by the way, and it's an anime profile picture, not safe for work account called Mr. Yup Jup. So that's an obvious authority on the issue. Anyway, we can stop playing this, John, so we don't torture all of our viewers, but you get the point. Now, why would the far right oppose this? That's a good question, right? It's just educational. There's nothing going to go wrong here at all. Well, let's go over to the one in Denmark, because I also want to know why all of these shows have started around the same time. Is there some sort of lobbying group behind this? If anyone knows, please put it in the comments, because I'm sure there's going to be some kind of activist pressure bankrolling this entire parade of degeneracy. In Copenhagen, "Okay, children, does anyone have a question?" This is in the New York Times article. The TV host says, "Only a few in the audience of 11 to 13-year-olds raised their hands. Remember, you can't do anything wrong," he said. "There are no bad questions." You can't blame the children if their thoughts were elsewhere. On a stage before them, in a heated studio in Copenhagen, stood 5 adults in bathrobes. Having discussed it for days before school, the children knew what was coming next. Mr. Shao gave a nod, and the adults cast off their robes. Facing the children and the cameras, they stood completely naked like statues, with their hands and arms folded behind their backs. And so, a recording of the latest episode of an award-winning Danish children's programme, Ultra Strips Down, began. So, the motivation behind this, Mr. Shao, who's the host, who helped develop the concept of the show after the producer came up with the idea, said the point was to counter the daily bombardment of young people with images of perfect, unrealistic bodies. Perhaps some people are like, "Oh my god, they're combining nakedness and kids." Yeah, kind of a bad thing. But this has nothing to do with sex. Oh, not at all. No. It's about seeing the body as natural, the way that kids do.
Excuse me, I've been very angry with this.
Yep.
It makes me very angry. I don't understand the level and the strength of the projection. Why are they doing it so much? It seems that they're trying to push it very aggressively.
Yes.
And honestly, there's no excuse for this. If there are some parents who for some reason think that their children should watch naked bodies, but they could take them to places where nudists swim, let's say.
I don't think you should even give them that, Stelios.
I'm not saying that they should, but I'm trying to point out the degree in which they're pushing forward that. Why do you need a TV show?
Because
honestly, I mean, that would be a really weird request.
Yeah, but if they make it
when
everywhere...
when they make it a TV show, they are trying to create the idea and the impression to the people that this is a request that many people have and many children have.
Yeah, exactly. So it's to gaslight you into compliance by making you feel like a minority.
I never said it's acceptable.
No, I know
I'm just trying to illustrate the distinction between these two attitudes.
Yeah, they're trying to create the new normal of acceptable discourse as placating to the perverted, and if you speak up against it, you're made to feel bullied and small. So it's institutional gaslighting at the expense of child innocence.
What if children don't want to watch it, or say that? For
then
instance,
they're bigots, aren't they? And you wouldn't want to be a bigot at school and be bullied,
and
would you?
where do they fall on the political spectrum according to the directors of the show? You don't have to answer.
Yep. We recognise the significance for Bruise, said Sophie Munzer, a nationally recognised expert in Nordic parenting. Experts say flashing children, great idea. Danish parenting generally favours exposing children rather than shielding them. One famous example of how far the Danes take this philosophy was the euthanization and dissection of a giraffe at the Copenhagen Zoo in 2014, where children observed from the front row. I think dissecting an animal might be a bit different to seeing a grown adult's appendage. But maybe I'm just a bigot. Complete inclusiveness is one of the show's key objectives, which is why the children were also introduced to Ray, who is a transgender and identifies as they/them. I'm not a boy, not a girl, I'm a bit of everything, said Ray. I have 7 hairs of beard now. So, again, vehicle for obvious gender confusion and gender ideology. The programme is now in its 2nd season, and while perhaps a shock to non-Danes, it is highly popular in Denmark. Recently, however, a leading member of the right-wing Danish People's Party, Peter Skarup, said he found Ultra Strips Down to be depraving our children. It's far too early for children to start with male and female genitalia, he told BT, a Danish tabloid. At that age, he said, they already have many things running in their heads. How radical. Basically a mid-century German painter. So, why do they oppose this? What could possibly be wrong with this? Well, imagine my shock, to the surprise of absolutely no one, when a convicted paedophile participates in the show in Denmark, because they didn't background check it. Shockingly, when you put children in the proximity to naked adults that they don't know, paedophiles are going to get involved.
Why didn't they fact check? Did they think that it was going to harm the psychology of the contestant?
Possibly. Yeah, well, paedophilia will be the new frontier in the abolition of oppression. We've already seen that with the minor attracted persons movement, and the EU even lending credence to that, and Scotland. So only a matter of time. Fortunately, this has been a wedge issue that we've been pushing on, but keep going, because this is clearly waking up lots of normal people and parents to how pernicious intersectionality is. One of the participants in Ultra Strips Down has been convicted of sexual intercourse with a child and possession of more than 3,000 child pornographic images and videos. This is reading from a translation of this article, by the way. The verdict fell on Monday in a court in Glostrup. The 41-year-old is convicted of this offence is one of the people who undress in the programme in front of school class. The programme was broadcast in the fall of 2020, but after an acquaintance of the now convicted man contacted DR and reported suspicion against him, DR chose to remove the episode, however, without informing the outside world as to why. One of the programme's most persistent critics, the Danish People's Party Peter Skarup, calls the case unfortunate. We have a specific victim of one of the contributors and a family to the victim who can see that DR has had a paedophile in a broadcast where he stands naked in front of children. I am particularly upset by the way they took the programme down without making more of it. It's outrageous to try and cover it up afterwards, putting it in instead of clearly announcing. And so, do you know what the topic of this particular show that the paedophile took part of is?
I have a feeling I don't want to learn, but I will.
Gender and identity.
Okay.
Because of course it is. Because if you say, by virtue of your identity, you can do no wrong and you are marginalised, you're going to get people using it as a Trojan horse to get close to children because that is their sexual fetish. So then they interviewed the convicted person in question. And he says, there is nothing sexual about him and his participation in the broadcast. So everyone else that trots out that defence for this show, including the fella I debated on GB News, and I brought that up on air. I just didn't include it there because I didn't want to expose the lead for you, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone who brings out that defence is actively enabling predators in the proximity of innocent children. Now, it's either they're so naive that they walk into furniture every day, which I'm sure is plenty of people going along with the gender ideology, or because some people have a vested interest in it themselves. But I wouldn't insinuate that about anyone who's participated in the show, of course, because that would be legally liable. So I'm not going to say that. Not at all. Didn't say it. I'm not exactly an athlete, but I'm not embarrassed of my body, and I want to pass that element on, this person said. So what do they think about the criticism of the programme? I don't see the problem in it. We're all born naked after all, and everyone has been given written permission from their parents to join. Can you understand if anyone thinks it is uncomfortable now that there is a convicted man who has been part of the programme? No, I actually can't. I've been standing 10 metres from the children on stage, and they've been able to ask me questions, but it is possible that someone thinks so, and that is why DR has chosen to remove the programme. The man was sentenced to 9 months in prison in district court and has appealed the sentence to an Eastern District Court. Because obviously, he violated the conditions of him being on the sex offence registry because he's stripping off in front of children. Look, I'm not going to beat the dead horse. Obviously, let's not do this. It should be completely sane to anyone involved that isn't a rabid progressive leftist who will justify literally anything for the sake of inclusion and allow lots of perverse people to get their rocks off. And I think it would do a good job if you pretty much prosecuted everyone involved in this.
It's very sad because, I mean, in general, we can say that many people think in terms of their short-term interest, and they cannot see the bigger picture. Here, I think we see this being blown out of proportions, and by not even checking the background of that contestant, they just illustrate perfectly that all they care about is just sensitivity on the one hand. They say, okay, no, we don't want to hurt your emotions. That's one bit. The other bit, which may be a bit more, let's say, a more harsh interpretation, is that this is there's an intention behind it, and there's not behind putting the contestant there, but behind all these programs to push this agenda very hard.
Yeah, well, remember, an excuse is a promise of repetition.
Yes, and I think that we're running, many people who refuse to see the bigger picture, they're running out of excuses, and they should be confronted with info like that, because, they're running out of excuses when they say that, well, some people are blowing it out of proportions. We're not.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this episode, and whether UFOs are possible. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.